Good afternoon, everyone. Can everybody please come up? We'll get this started. We're going to keep it pretty brief on my end. But thank you for attending here today. We're here today to support working people and working families. Working people were hit hardest by the COVID-19 pandemic and have had to bear the weight of the economic recovery. I know the toll that takes. Before I was a senator, I was a union plumber and the business manager of the largest plumbers union in the state of Pennsylvania. I led my union through the 2008 recession. I know what it feels like to live paycheck to paycheck. I've been there. To wonder how you're going to put food on the table. I know what that also feels like. We should be investing in our workers, not letting them fall through the cracks. We should be building a Pennsylvania that works for working families, not one that leaves them behind. We should expand workplace protections, guaranteed paid sick leave, raise the minimum wage, and make sure we are building an economy that works for workers. It's an honor to be here today, to be with and to introduce a champion for labor and for working families, Governor Tom Wolf. Governor.
Thank you, John. It's really good to be here. Thank you for making, and I understand the weather is always this nice in Wallingford, so thank you. Listen, a record number of Americans left their jobs last month, a record number. And it's led a lot of people to ask, okay, why is this happening? What's up with labor? The question we really ought to be asking, though, is what do we do right now to make our workplaces more attractive? What do we do to make people want to come to work for us? And that's what is driving what I'm going to be talking about today and what all of us are going to be talking about today. We all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought challenges to businesses, it's brought challenges to families and workers all across the country in every single industry. One challenge that has been in the spotlight lately, again, is the shortage of workers. Everybody's talking about that now in a way we weren't talking about it before. Even before the pandemic, worker shortages were a challenge in certain industries. But in the last 18 months, this has really become an issue. In August, I think, as you all know, a record 4.3 million Americans voluntarily left their jobs. They resigned. 4.3 million people. Many of them left because they were searching for better pay, better work, better benefits, better career, better future. This is evidence of the considerable leverage that workers have right now. With our economy on the comeback and plentiful work options available, workers now have the power to choose. They have the power to look for jobs that provide what they think the best for themselves, the best for their families. They have a lot of options for work, and they can choose to work for companies that say keep them safe, that pay fair wages, that provide desirable benefits. And let's be clear, isn't that a great thing? Workers have options. We should want that. We want workers to have their pick of good, safe jobs that let them support a family, that let them build a successful life in our communities. And by the way, that let them, back when I was in business, let them afford, be able to buy my kitchen cabinets. That was a really great thing. The shortage of workers in certain industries is, again, a nationwide issue. It isn't unique to Pennsylvania. But I don't want to wait for the rest of the nation to figure out what to do about this. I want Pennsylvania to set the pace. So why don't we start by, again, asking how we can make work better for the people we would like to take those jobs. Let us step up and lead in this transformative movement. And let me just point out, again, I've been in politics now for 7 years. Before that, I was in business. I owned a business. And it was a fairly competitive business, building products, residential building products. And I would go around to these round tables all around the country, sort of seeing what's the best practice, who's doing what to make things better. And each and every one of those things, we would sort of anonymously, so we weren't breaking any laws, share financial information, how we were performing. And my company always did really well. We were always at the top of the charts. And we kept talking about that, why that was. We were all buying the same products. We were all buying basically the same raw materials. We all used the same technology. If someone found something that was different, it didn't take long for the rest of the industry to catch up. But what I found, was that the reason I was doing relatively well was because I was treating my workers well. We paid top of the charts in terms of base compensation, and we had bonuses, real significant bonuses tied to, for every employee, a cash bonus tied to profitability on top of really good benefits, including pension, health insurance, life insurance, special pricing for the products that we sold, all those things. And it wasn't something that actually was a cost. It was something that made my company better. And I think that's what we're talking about here. What we're talking about when we make the workplace more attractive for workers, we're talking about making businesses more successful, because that is the key. And that's why I'm announcing a new workforce agenda to meet the needs of workers and businesses and our economy. By taking action to improve workplaces in Pennsylvania, we are going to ensure our Commonwealth is a place where people actually want to work, where businesses can actually do really well. They can thrive. I'm taking executive action in some cases, and I'm calling for legislative action, and some of the legislative sponsors are right here today, to create safer workplaces, to promote higher wages, and guarantee paid leave for workers. These are three necessary changes that will not only help workers, but will also transform the nature of work in Pennsylvania and make our economy stronger. This is going to help businesses. So let's start with safety. Yesterday, I signed an executive order to call on the Department of Labor and Industry, Secretary Barrier is here, and the Department of Community and Economic Development to study how occupational safety and health administration standards can be implemented in the Commonwealth. That's OSHA. And to ensure that businesses that receive state grants and contracts protect their employees by following these laws. All we're saying is, we have these laws. We need to make sure that you're following those laws. I'm also calling on the General Assembly to extend OSHA safety rules to all public employees in the workplace. That doesn't affect federal workers, but every state, but also county and local employees need to follow the OSHA standards. That's not the case right now. Legislation has already been introduced by Senator Tina Tartaglione and Representative Pat Harkins that would boost confidence in workplace safety. Let's call on our legislature to actually pass that legislation. How about wages? Let's get there next. Fair wages, desirable benefits, and a better quality of life also matter. Too many hardworking people in Pennsylvania are forced to choose between losing a day's pay or not coming to work when they're sick, or coming to work when they're sick, and if they don't, they lose the day's pay. So providing sick leave, sick pay, would improve public health, it would keep workers safe in the workplace, and it would improve the quality of life for workers and their families, not to mention all the rest of us. The executive order I signed yesterday requires that companies that receive grants from the governor's action team, they have to provide paid employee sick leave. Thank you. I'm also calling on the General Assembly to pass legislation sponsored by Senator Vince Hughes and Mike Zabel that would provide paid sick leave to all workers in Pennsylvania. We need to do that. I mean, that's not just a moral issue. That's actually a smart thing for all of us. And finally, let's do something about our minimum wage. Are you getting tired of me talking about the minimum wage? 7 years I've been talking about this. Workers are standing up and declaring that they deserve better than Pennsylvania's embarrassingly low minimum wage. I already raised the minimum wage for state employees. I can do that by executive order. State employees under my jurisdiction, I signed that executive order in 2018. And that order puts state employees on a path to earning $15 an hour. Now, Okay, let's be clear. There weren't a lot of state workers that were affected by that, but it sent a signal. We need to say we are going to practice what we preach. And it's past time that all Pennsylvanians get the same benefit. So the General Assembly needs to act. Unfortunately, our Republican sisters and brothers in the legislature refuse to act, and Pennsylvanians each year get left farther behind. As you all know, all of our neighboring states have a minimum wage that is higher than Pennsylvania. West Virginia, Ohio, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. I think I got them all. They all have a higher minimum wage than Pennsylvania. There are 30 states in the country that have a higher minimum wage than Pennsylvania does. I don't know about you, but I haven't heard of any of those states, businesses screaming that, things are just really bad. So all these states have higher minimum wage than we do. It's time for us to act. We need to increase Pennsylvania's minimum wage, and I'm once again asking the General Assembly to pass Tina Tartaglione, Senator Tartaglione's bill, and Representative Patty Kim's bill in the House, legislation to raise Pennsylvania's minimum wage. These three actions, making workplace safer, promoting a higher minimum wage, and guaranteeing paid leave, are cornerstone changes we need to make Pennsylvania a better home for workers and for businesses. This plan is good for workers, yes, but it's also good for businesses. It's good for all of us. It's good for our economy. Unfortunately, many worker-friendly bills that would help workers and help all of us in Pennsylvania are languishing in the General Assembly. I'm calling on Republican leaders to bring these items up for a vote. They will pass. I'm confident of it. Our Commonwealth is at a turning point, and we need all of our leaders right now to come together to help workers, to support businesses, and strengthen our economy. Thank you very much. And now it is my great honor to turn this over to the Secretary of Labor and Industry, Jennifer Berrier. Secretary Berrier.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a very lovely afternoon in Delaware County, and I'm very happy to be here amongst some friendly faces. And I'm also very pleased to be a representative of the Wolf administration to support the governor's efforts to advance protections for Pennsylvania's workers. We are in the midst of a national conversation about the value of work and the dignity of individuals whose labor is the engine of our economy. And that conversation has been driven primarily by the so-called labor shortage, a complex phenomenon, but obvious to any of us who've seen all of the help wanted signs and have heard from businesses that they're struggling to find workers. And the data actually bears this out. A recent report called the Demographic Drought looked at the U.S. labor force participation rate, which measures the percentage of people working or actively seeking work compared to the total working age population. The labor force participation rate is the lowest it's been since the 1970s recession 5 decades ago. Can you believe that? Last week, the U.S. Department of Labor, as the governor said, released its most recent data that showed that 4.3 million Americans voluntarily left their jobs in August alone. In the 21 years that the department has been collecting this information, there has never been a month where more people have quit their jobs. Never. And naturally, all of us are asking, why is this happening? Why is this occurring? Why are people choosing to leave their jobs? And certainly, all these reasons are very personal to those folks. But again, we can look to the data for clues, for a collective truth. In August alone, 892,000 workers nationwide left accommodation and food service jobs, a field that I worked in for nearly 20 years. That's nearly 7% of that industry. I know why. Another 721,000 workers left retail positions. That represented 4.7% of that industry's workforce. It is not a coincidence, folks, that the jobs these folks are leaving are the ones that are historically paying the lowest wages. We need restaurant workers and we need retail workers, but we cannot continue to expect that the people in our communities will choose jobs that do not pay a livable wage or benefits. especially in a market that gives them other options. When there is an overabundance of homes or apartments available, we call that a buyer's market. Well, today what we have is a worker's market. The large number of open jobs is giving people the opportunity to be selective about their employment, to choose jobs that offer better pay, good working conditions, and the best opportunities for their future and their family's future. And Governor Wolf's actions today meets this moment by centering the needs of Pennsylvania workers. The governor's executive order directs the Department of Labor and Industry to work with other Commonwealth agencies to ensure that contractors and grant recipients are in compliance with labor and workforce safety laws. Many of these laws are laws that the Department of Labor and Industry enforces, such as the Minimum Wage Act, the Prevailing Wage Act, and the Worker Misclassification Act. We at the department will be very proactive in our efforts to inform vendors and grant recipients about labor and workplace safety laws and the consequences of noncompliance, including the negative impacts on their eligibility to receive state grants and state contracts. The governor's executive order also directs Labor and Industry to make publicly available a list of organizations that violate labor laws, misclassify workers, owe unemployment compensation back taxes, or who fail to carry the requisite workers' compensation insurance publicly available on our website. We are working on that right now to verify that that information is correct. We will know who these bad actors are. And as the governor mentioned earlier, Labor and Industry will also work with the Office of Administration to study the feasibility of implementing OSHA standards in Commonwealth offices, which is much needed to protect our workers. I joined Governor Wolf in also urging the General Assembly to take action to help out-of-work Pennsylvanians, many of whom are facing hardship as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, we support Representative Jerry Mullery's bill, House Bill 549, which amends the unemployment compensation law to streamline the process for eligible Pennsylvania workers to provide better access to the benefits for which they are entitled, especially during times of high unemployment and economic downturn. And we've seen the result of what happens when you impose burdensome requirements on individuals trying to collect UC. We don't want to be in that position again. The time to take meaningful action to support workers and promote economic prosperity is now. That's why the governor has also directed Labor and Industry to update the Minimum Wage Act regulations to ensure that workers are paid for all hours worked. And I echo Governor Wolf's calling on the General Assembly to raise the minimum wage by creating a pathway to $15 an hour. All workers deserve the security of a livable minimum wage and the dignity of earning a wage that supports their family. It's time now that the laws in Pennsylvania reflect our values. Every hardworking Pennsylvanian deserves a safe place to work, equitable opportunity in our economy, and a true living wage. And at this time, I'd like to present Representative Leanne Kruger. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Secretary. And Governor, thank you for coming back to Delaware County. I want to first thank my colleagues who are joining us here today to stand in solidarity with our workers. Senators Carney and Cappelletti, Representatives Deloso and Zabel. We're also joined by County Council member Christine Ruther, who lives here in Nether Providence, and local labor leaders George Piasecki and Richard Womack and Bill Adams, who you'll hear from in a bit. As a Democratic Secretary of the House Labor and Industry Committee, I can tell you that my colleagues and I have been working hard to advance good bills to support working families here in Pennsylvania. I'm grateful that the governor has taken executive action to support workers, but there is so much more left to do. There are many actions that are outside of what the governor has the power to do through executive orders, and it is time for the legislature to take action as well. So far this year, my colleagues have introduced 50 pro-worker bills that have been referred to the House Labor and Industry Committee. That's 50 separate bills since January. We've introduced bills to fix the problems with the unemployment compensation system and to address the worker misclassification issues that impact our brothers and sisters in the building trades. We've introduced bills to raise the minimum wage, multiple bills to address equal pay for women, bills to support parental leave and paid family leave and paid sick leave. We've introduced bills to support teachers and nurses and farm workers and low-wage workers and nursing mothers. But none of these bills, not one, have been considered by the majority chairman of the Labor and Industry Committee. I myself introduced a bill, House Bill 348, that would protect healthcare workers on the front lines by addressing the workplace violence issues that have made their jobs even tougher during this pandemic. My bill, like all the others, has been sitting in committee since February. Folks, our neighbors need us now. Our nurses need us to act. Our working moms need us to act. Our brothers and sisters in the building trades need us to act. It is way past time for the legislature to take action on these bills. And you know what? We are back in Harrisburg on Monday. It would not be very hard for the majority chairman to schedule a meeting and to run these bills next week. We'll be pressuring him to take action when we get back to the Capitol. And it's now my pleasure to introduce a local friend and neighbor, Bill Adams, president of IBEW Local 654.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Adams, and I am the president of IBEW Local 654 in Boothwyn. I'm a lifelong Delaware County resident. I grew up in one of the smallest boroughs in the county, where my friends' parents, as well as my own parents, were all workers. Oftentimes, many of them worked multiple jobs to provide for the betterment of their family. I'm proud to be an IBEW 654 electrical worker for 37 years. The IBEW leads the way by training workers through apprenticeship programs and fighting for family-sustaining wages, health care, and pension benefits. Governor Wolf is speaking today for workers that are currently in serious demand. By Governor Wolf calling for better wages, benefits, and worker safety, he is raising worker standards for everyone in Pennsylvania. I would like to thank the attending state senators and state representatives for their support of Governor Wolf's efforts. In Delaware County, there are thousands, In Delaware County, there are thousands of workers, teachers, nurses, plant workers, first responders, construction workers, essential workers, and many, many more. Governor Wolf, thank you for respecting and listening to the workers and trying to create a better paying and quality jobs for Pennsylvania. Thank you. And I'd like to return the podium to Governor Wolf.
Happy to take questions. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for being here, everybody. Thank you very much for being here.